my host today says, and I quote, "Based on the Constitution of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, I believe it is incongruous for my brother, Nyesom Wike, to be seeking to be governor of Rivers State at this time. I am sure that even he would admit that." End of quote. He also goes on to say he believes that no group will feel threatened when he becomes governor of Rivers State. Well, hello and welcome. This is 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajumogobia. Thank you for joining me on the program today. Born on the 29th day of June 1956, he's from Ijaw, Calabari stock, from Abonima in Rivers State. He was the best graduating student in his law class at the University of Lagos, where he obtained a Bachelor of Laws degree in 1978. He followed that up with a master's degree from the prestigious Harvard University in the United States, that in 1988. He became a fellow of the London Chartered Institute of Arbitrators in 1996 and a member of the International Court of Arbitration and Commission of Arbitration, that in 2001 to 2006. He was the chairman of the Council of Ministers of ECOWAS states, that's the Economic Community of West African States. As Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice in Rivers State, he was a member of the Council of Legal Education and a body of benchers, that's from 2003 to 2007. He was a member of Nigeria's National Economic Council, the Honorary Investment Council, and the National Privatization Council. He took over as Foreign Affairs Minister on 6 April 2010 from his predecessor, Odein Ajumogobia. He headed Nigeria's delegation to OPEC, that's the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, from July 2007 to December 2008. He was Nigeria's Minister of Petroleum Resources, January 2009 to 2010, also acted as the Supervising Minister of Power. So, join me after the break. I'm counting down 60 minutes with a man who says he wants to be governor of Rivers State, Henry Odein Ajumogobia, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Welcome back. Welcome, Mr. Ajumogobia. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Oh, thank you.
Now, in researching you and, asking people about you, a lot of words were bandied to me: distinguished, non-controversial, rises to the occasion, diplomatic. You sounded almost perfect, and I thought, is that the reality here, or do people have it all wrong about you?
Well, I'm sure my wife wouldn't agree with all those descriptions. It's flattering to hear those words to describe one. One has tried in life to live what one believes. I grew up in a very close family setting. My parents were concentrated a lot on bringing us up and making sure that we had very strong family values. Every morning my father would wake us up and we'd have family prayers, and every night we would have family prayers before we went to bed. And it was remarkable because I'm a father now, and I just can't imagine how he was able to do that,
yes,
being a very busy person himself. He led that effort. Every morning he would come to our rooms and, so prayer time, and he would lead family prayers. Sometimes you'd want to go to bed and you'd be woken up for evening prayers. So I think a very strong moral compass that's with us till today. It still guides us. I still think, what would my father do? What would my father say? What would my mother say in this situation? And that guides me and my siblings up till this time. Even about this endeavor.
Yes.
We'd all ask ourselves, what would Daddy say?
Yes.
What would Daddy have said if he was here? And so my prayer is that I can pass that sort of compass, if you like, to my children.
And listening to you and listening to what you're saying about your background, another thing a lot of people pointed out is, what is he doing going into politics? I know that, Dr. Odili drafted you into politics, but people don't associate you with politics. In fact, they say he can't get his hands dirty, and they assume that everyone who goes into politics must be able to play dirty. What do you say to comments like that?
Well, I mean, I say to people that the more people who are professionals and who have, people talk about having a second address. When I left office as foreign minister in 2011, I came back to my office and it was exactly as I had left it and went back into practice. The next day I was interviewing clients. And I think the more people like that get involved in this process, the better for the country. I think it's wrong, the notion that politics is for people who don't have certain values, people who don't espouse the values that will take this country to the levels of first world countries, that it's not for such people, it's for others. I think that's wrong. Politicians are always non-professionals and so on. There are so many very accomplished professionals and business people who espouse, some of those values in politics. So I disagree with those who say so.
Was it difficult to be convinced to go into politics?
Yes, because of the perception of politics. I chose to build a career in the law, and I did so for almost 30 years. If I discount the period I was in government, it's probably 25 years. And I think I had got to a point where I decided that elective politics was not for me, given that I'd been close to it as Attorney General, I'd been close to it as Minister.
Yes.
And I wasn't sure that I was suited to the process. I thought I had acquired the skills and the knowledge and the experience to govern, but that's not enough. You have to seek power, and you have to go to the grassroots to do that.
Yeah.
You have to set up structures at the grassroots and build a whole structure on which you can realize any ambition to govern.
Yes.
And having been close to that process, I wasn't sure that I was well suited to it. So why am I doing this? After I left office, I went back to my firm, and I thought I was focusing on two things, essentially, to try and take the firm to a different... It's been a very successful effort, the law firm. It's been very successful. But I thought it could even be more successful. We just celebrated 30 years last year.
You're in a partnership.
In a partnership.
Yes.
It's 30 years old. It's one of the largest and most successful partnerships in the country.
How have you managed that, though? I mean...
Well, I've been fortunate. I've had excellent partners. My original partner, Christopher Okeke, is an extraordinary lawyer and partner and brother.
Yes.
And we started this firm. We've since grown, and we have new partners. The former Attorney General of Lagos State, Shukpo Shashore, who incidentally ran for Governor of Lagos State, is an extraordinary lawyer as well. They're very, very good. Ovio Kiri, Patrick Osu, Tunde Shodipo, these are all my partners. And they've kept the flag flying. Even at one point, all of us were out. Chris Okeke left the firm, retired early to go into farming. I went into government, Shukpo went into government, but the firm kept going because it was built on a firm foundation. So that was one of my objectives. The other objective was to try and play catch up with my children and my wife.
Right.
Because I'd been out in public service for 8 years consecutively, and that takes its toll. But while I was doing that, the crisis in Rivers State began, and it started snowballing. And I couldn't take my eyes away from it. I mean, I was engaged in a way that surprised me. Because, I live in Lagos. It wasn't in my face. I watched it on TV and so on.
But you would find that because you had been Attorney General of Rivers State, didn't you find a lot of people calling you and asking you about the crisis at the time?
I did. In fact, a lot of media called me and wanted my views and my comments and so on. But when I left office, I made a decision that I was going to stay out of the public view as much as I could. I would talk about professional issues. I would talk at law seminars and so on. I was a lawyer, and I was going to go back to my profession and practice law. So I refused to give any interviews on politics or anything to do with even the Rivers crisis. At one point, I was tempted to write
an article.
And I actually did. I actually wrote an article. I think I captioned it, "Where are the peacemakers?" or "Blessed are the peacemakers," or something. I was advocating that the leaders in the party should come in and solve this crisis that's going to consume Rivers State. So that's how engaged I was. I eventually didn't publish it because I thought it was perhaps belated. The crisis had gone beyond...
It spiraled out.
It had spiraled out of control, and I might be misunderstood if I put that forward. So I didn't. But I got more and more engaged in the Rivers State, and how this crisis would impact on the future. And it made me think, sitting here in Lagos and building a law firm or rebuilding and trying to expand it and so on, it's important to me. I mean, that's what I've done with my life. And now one is thinking about the future and thinking of handing over and retiring and so on. And you like to retire when you've left it in, first of all, in good hands and so on. But then I thought, what's more important? You know, that's where I don't come from Lagos. You know, we sometimes those of us who come from, you know, what do they call us? You know, but we don't come from here, and we tend to forget that we don't come from here, and you know, and so I just found myself thinking about this and more and more, and talking to my wife about it and saying, you know, what do you think about this? And at the same time, I was getting a lot of calls. As the crisis degenerated, I started getting calls from all sorts of people.
Was
some
your
very
wife
surprising.
Hostile to the idea?
Absolutely.
She would have been horrified.
Absolutely. She said to me, you know, we haven't recovered from our first, you know, entry into politics in terms of, it's very disruptive. You know, you
and that's as a minister.
Yeah, you leave family life, you go into this thing, and you don't fully understand everything about it, you know, and in politics, that's the thing about politics. Dr. Odein used to say, you know, it's one of the most important professions, yet it's got the most basic entry requirements. I mean, school certificate, and you're 40, and you can be president of Nigeria. You know, that's the entry level. So the entry is very, very easy to everyone. And so if those who have the experience and the knowledge and the expertise and so on to go into politics don't. The entry level is very low. So you get whatever you get, you know.
And you just sit at home complaining about it.
And so I started thinking, and then I got these calls from very respectable people in the state, across the state, traditional rulers, some of them, priests, some of them, business people, you know, all sorts of people. And it got me thinking that, could I do this, really? Could I really do this? Is it worth it? What are the prospects? And then the crisis snowballed further because the governor of my state seemed to have been on a collision with the presidency and eventually left the PDP. Now, Rivers State has been a dominant PDP state.
I mean, you gave President Jonathan the most votes in 2011.
Absolutely. We always give the federal government, whoever is running for president, the most votes. But the movement of the governor to APC changed the paradigm completely because you had Rivers State was now determined as the governor to make Rivers State an APC state.
So why did members of the PDP like yourself follow the governor into the APC?
I like to think of myself as brand loyal. I joined the PDP in the year 2000. One of the reasons that I joined the PDP was I thought it had a national outlook. There wasn't any one you could point at, any individual you could point at and say he owns the PDP, or his decision in the PDP is final. It had very accomplished and very prominent people across the country. So that was attractive.
And of course you had to be a member of a political party to be a commissioner and a minister.
Absolutely, So that's the attraction. One of the elements in the PDP constitution that I find endearing is the policy of rotation and power shift and power sharing. In a diverse country such as Nigeria, where you have diversity of ethnicity and religion especially, these are two powerful forces, elements in our polity. I felt that a party that embraces the notion that power should move to give those who would not ordinarily, because they come from minorities like myself, have a chance to govern, even no matter how competent you might be. That was attractive to me. I mean, I thought it was a platform on which the country could grow, because and it would build unity and build ties of brotherhood and so on, cooperation.
In reality, do you think it works? Some people would argue that in following that, we rule out those who are really competent. If, for instance, you know, an Ikwere man is a competent person to govern the state, and they say, oh no, it's not your zone, doesn't that rub off rob the people of the kind of leadership that they really want?
I've thought about that. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think Nigeria has long passed the point where any part of the country is so educationally or backward that they can't produce competent people, don't have experienced people and so on. And it's incumbent on all of us in the country to groom young people for leadership. So
that everyone has somebody.
So, yes, and I think we've got to a point now, especially where you look at the zones. If now we've contrived these zones, of south, south, southeast, southwest, northeast, north central, and northwest. They're not in the Constitution, but they're a convenient arrangement to be able to do this.
Yes.
Now, if you take an entire zone, it's difficult for me to believe that any of these zones doesn't have several people that are competent. So it's not, and the same thing with Rivers State. Rivers State was exposed to education very, very early, and so especially in Rivers State, you don't have that. There are very competent people in every ethnic nationality, in the state. But it's diverse. Yeah. Rivers State, in many ways, is a microcosm of Nigeria. We have sort of 19 different ethnic groups, different languages, and so that endeared the PDP to me, and still does now, and that's why I didn't even consider for a moment leaving the PDP.
And even though you had this ambition to govern, you still didn't consider that, perhaps the power of incumbency might work in your favor, or perhaps if you moved to the APC with the current governor, you might have been the anointed one, so to speak.
Well, the decision to put my hat in the ring, as it were, evolved. As I said, it was a very slow process. I had to convince first my wife, which wasn't a very easy task. She's a very accomplished woman in her own right, and very gifted, in so many ways. And I respect her opinion. If she had said absolutely not, you wouldn't be talking to me. But I think she too, it sort of evolved as well with her. And at some point, she thought, okay, let's take it one step at a time. Go and get the expression of interest form, and see if you can get, the nominations. You can't just simply say, I want to be governor.
Yes.
You have to have people across the state nominating you from at least 2/3 of the local governments. We have 23 in Rivers State.
Okay.
So at least 16.
Yes.
By some miracle, even though people call me a Lagos boy, I managed to get endorsements from all 23 local governments, right? So
did you surprise yourself?
Not really, because because we live in Lagos, they think we're Lagosians. We're not. I come from Abonima. I'm a homeboy.
Yes.
Really. I grew up with my grandparents in my formative years with my grandparents, Reverend Canon A.M. Wokoma and his wife in Abonima and Buguma. And the first language I spoke was, there's a debate whether it was Calabari or English, but it was both. I spoke, that doesn't sound like Lagos, but people don't know that. So even now, when I interact with people at home and I speak Calabari, they're sort of shocked. Oh, really? So what do you think I am?
I didn't think you could speak Calabari.
So it's not so. I chose to build a professional practice in Lagos. Lagos is the center of. It's the business capital of the country, and if you want to be a commercial lawyer, this is the place to be. And by the grace of God, I made a success of legal practice in Lagos. I think people at home should be proud that the Rivers boy came out to Lagos
and he did well.
And did well, But now it's a different time. I'm at a different stage in my life. I was at a stage when as I said, I wanted to consolidate the firm that I've spent 30 years, or 25 years building, and try and pass on some of these experiences that I've garnered over all this time to my children, and try and help them to succeed.
Yes.
And then this happened, and I got drawn into it slowly. And so it wasn't like I suddenly decided, I want to be governor of Rivers State. I actually never had such an aspiration. It evolved. And one of the things that really got to me was the court, as we speak, the courts in Rivers State are not functioning because there's a dispute over the chief judgeship of the state. I actually have a case in court. Well, it's supposed to be in court, but it can't go to court because there's no court to go to.
Yes.
So I can't imagine what's going on in the state in terms of law and order. If you have I mean, there must be disputes between people,
Yes.
between organizations. How do they resolve them? What's going on? You know, as a lawyer and as a former Attorney General in the state, that really got to me. And I thought, we can't just sit on the fence and just watch this. You know, the state going down. And so eventually, I got to the point where I was bold enough to go and pick up that extraordinarily expensive form.
All right, we'll take our first break now. When we come back, we'll start off from the point of power shift. Join us again after the break. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajumogobia. On my hot seat today, Odein Ajumogobia, former Attorney General of Rivers State and a former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. Now, let us start with the question of power shift, especially its role in the breakup of the PDP as we knew it in Rivers State. And the quote I gave at the beginning of the program, you said, based on the constitution of the PDP, it is incongruous for your brother, Nyesom Wike, to be seeking to be governor of the state at this time. And you're sure that even he would admit that. What did you mean by that?
Rivers State has been governed for the last 8 years by first Sir Celestine Omehia, who was Dr. Odele's immediate successor.
Right.
And then his election was challenged by Rotimi Amechi, who argued that he was unlawfully substituted as the candidate of the PDP in that election. At that time, the Electoral Act had a provision that you could only substitute a candidate if you had cogent and verifiable reasons.
Yes.
Now, the reason that was given at the time for the substitution of Sir Omehia for Amechi was that it was done in error.
Right.
Now, that's neither cogent nor verifiable. And so Amechi eventually succeeded in winning in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ordered that he be sworn in as governor. So he's been governor since October 26, 2007 to date. By 29th of May 2015, when the seat becomes vacant, he would have done 8 years. Now, two proud Ikwere sons have been governor. The PDP constitution says, I think I'm probably quoting accurately when it says, the party shall conform with the principles of power shift and power rotation amongst the diverse peoples of the country. Now, that to me means one ethnic group cannot succeed another because it should go around. Rotation means go around. It means must shift from one to the other so that everybody has a feeling. It also means that no ethnic group can dominate or be seen to be dominating, be perceived. The perception of dominance is bad enough.
That's the critical thing, the perception of it.
It's a perception of dominance. And that's why I said what I said, that knowing that if the governor of Rivers State for the last 8 years had been from Kalabari, I wouldn't be in the race, simply because I would think it was incongruous for me to be. And that's why I said what I said.
Are you friends with Nyesom Wike?
I wouldn't describe him as a friend. I don't think he would describe me as a friend either. But I think there's mutual respect. He was local government chairman of one of the most prominent local governments in the country, and one of the most resourced. I was Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice at the time. We interacted from time to time.
That's Obio Akpo, local
Obio Akpo, yes.
Local government
yes. And we interacted from time to time. He's a lawyer as well, a senior lawyer. He's a member of the Body of Benchers, a very respected legal body, indeed the highest body in the legal profession.
Yes.
So there are a lot of commonalities. I found in the course of my, doing this, we shared another commonality. We both are descendants of Anglican priests. So he's son of an Anglican priest. I'm a grandson of an Anglican priest. You know. So there are commonalities. I wouldn't say we're friends, but I mean, if I saw him, if I see him in Abuja, we'd hug and
say hi.
And say hi, and there are no issue, absolutely no issues between us.
The reason I'm asking you is this: you said he's a lawyer. If you know this, that the PDP constitution says, let this thing spread around, why do you think he's insisting on being in the race?
Well, one of the beauties of the law is that there are different perspectives of every issue.
Yes.
That's why you have a lawyer on every side. I mean, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I've been on the same side I've been on different sides of an issue. I had an experience once where I handled a matter in the High Court for a client, and successfully.
Yes.
The client went on appeal. During the appeal, my law firm split. Some of the partners left and formed another firm. And one of the things we agreed when the firm was dissolved was that the client would go to the person who brought the client originally, regardless of who was doing his work or regardless of who was handling the case. Whoever brought this client, the case in would take the client away. It would then be for the client to choose, no, I don't want to go with you. I want to go back to the guy who's handling my case. So that's what we did. So this particular case went with my former partners.
Yeah.
And it went on appeal, and they won. So basically the judgment that I had obtained was sustained.
Yes.
In the middle of this, I was reading the judgment of the appeal court, and I thought I found a way to defeat my own original argument. Okay? And just by coincidence, the plaintiff who I had defeated came to ask whether I would represent him in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
I guess he got to like me.
Yes.
And I said this to my father, and my father said, absolutely not. Where's your morality?
Yeah.
So he was going to pay me a lot of money, but I dropped it. I didn't do that. So the point being that as a lawyer, you have different perspectives. And the matter is in court, so there must be a different perspective. And he's got very bright lawyers. That's Chief Fuge.
Yeah.
He's got very bright, talented lawyers who, for them to come into court and challenge my position means they must have something to say.
Yes.
So that's why we have the courts. I just assume that he loves Rivers State as much as I do.
Yes.
And he believes he has the knowledge, experience, and wherewithal to govern Rivers State, to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
He's been, apart from running a big local government, prominent local government, he was chief of staff to the governor. So he's seen governance.
Which governor? Governor
Amechi, yes. So he's seen governance at very close quarters. As chief of staff, you're right in the engine room.
Yes.
Right? So he's seen governance at very close quarters. He's been a minister in a very prominent Ministry of Education. So he's got administrative experience. So there's no question about his competence or his qualification.
Yes.
I'm talking about eligibility. Now, when you fill the expression of interest form, one of the things they ask you is, where do you come from? I think that's a relevant question because of the PDP constitution.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's irrelevant. They shouldn't ask me where I come from. It shouldn't matter. It matters because power should rotate. And that's basically what my position. But I think some of his supporters, I've had some real terrible flack from some of his supporters. Ajumogobia, go and face Chief Wike in the election and don't stop going to court and doing all sorts of things and so on.
Yes.
I was tempted to actually respond to say, hey, listen, between myself and Nyesom Wike, I concede that he can beat me, probably. I can't, he's a formidable politician, so that's not the competition. I'm saying isn't eligible. He shouldn't be running, right? Now, the corollary of that is that if I get the ticket and Nyesom Wike backs me, I will win. Right? And the PDP will take back the state from the APC.
And that's important, the point you make now about the PDP taking back the state, because it is obvious to me that any state in which the PDP is not united, they tend not to win. So if the PDP doesn't get its act right in Rivers State, it just may lose Rivers State forever.
Well, you see, the only argument I've heard that makes some sense as to why my brother has thrown his hat in the ring is that he's the only one that has the wherewithal, the political structure, the political wherewithal, if you like, to defeat an APC in the next election.
Right.
Let me give him the benefit of doubt that that's the case.
And what do they mean wherewithal? The grassroots touch.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose. I mean, I suppose the
war chest.
I suppose. He has said himself that he's. I think in one interview I saw where he said he was a general in this business. I mean, he's been in this thing for, a long time.
Yes.
He knows this thing. Like the back of his hand. The way I know law.
Yes.
I claim to.
Yes.
But the weakness of that lies in the fact that Rotimi Amechi is not running for governor in 2015, right? If he was, then I would understand this argument. He's not. He's put somebody else forward based on, interestingly, based on the PDP zoning formula.
Rotation.
Looking at where the governor hasn't come from before and picked someone. We have an upland and riverine dichotomy in Rivers State, just like we have a north and south dichotomy in the country.
Yes.
And so what the APC has done is the governorship has been in the upland for 16 years. Dr. Peter Odili formed from 1999 to 2007.
Yes.
And from 2007 to 2015, it would be Amechi, Omehia and Amechi. So he's moved it to the riverine. He's picked a riverine candidate in a senatorial zone that has never produced a governor. So, ostensibly...
That looks good on paper.
Because he's not running, the weakness of the argument is, why doesn't Chief Wike put this formidable machinery behind another party member?
Yes.
So that we can win?
After all, it's not Amechi he's going to face in the election.
He's going to face. He's going to face somebody else, right? And now, he is obviously, as a minister, was one of the most prominent party members in trying to reestablish the PDP in Rivers State. He was the arrowhead, as minister, he was the arrowhead of that effort. But all of us contributed. In my local government, certainly we contributed to the effort. I mean, I'm not suggesting that he didn't play a predominant role or anything like that, but it was a collective effort. If I had known that he was, at the time he was trying to re-establish PDP and supporting on behalf of the president, that he was actually running for governor, I'm not sure that if I wanted to be governor, that I'd contribute to that effort. If you see what I mean? So a lot of people...
The support for the president...
It was absolute support for the president. Everybody rallied round to support this effort. And then he translated this effort into a gubernatorial ambition. Certainly, let me speak for myself. I didn't think that was within contemplation because of the express provisions of the
eligibility rule
of the Constitution. But obviously he disagrees, and I wrote to the chairman of the National Working Committee of the party. Again, in accordance with the Constitution and its guidelines, that party issues,
don't take it out there.
Don't take it out. Let's resolve it as a family, And I didn't get a response. Time was of the essence because the primaries were looming. And I needed to understand whether I'm right or I'm wrong about my understanding of the Constitution. So I took it to court to ask the court to interpret the Constitution. And I've asked a series of questions. Is the Constitution a binding document? The INEC law requires all registered political parties to file a constitution. That suggests to me that it's an important and legal document. But is it binding? Or is it just like Chapter 2 of our Constitution, which has federal character provisions that are not justiciable? My position is that they are, because that's the constitution of a party or constitution of any association is what binds the members. This is what the common document that binds us all to each other and binds our organs and determines how things are run. And if it's binding, then what does this provision that says the party shall conform with zoning and rotation mean? Does it mean that a Kalabari governor for 8 years can be succeeded by another Kalabari governor for another 8 years? Is that what it means? And if it does, then if the courts say so, I go home. Because he's won the primary.
He's won the primary. All right, we'll take another break now. Join us again after the break. Welcome back. My concluding moments now with Odein Ajumogobia. Let's talk about the process of election now. And, you know, your last statement was he won the primaries. Do you consider that those primaries were legally carried out? Did you have valid congresses that led to the emergence of valid delegates?
Well, I didn't go to court after the primaries. I went to court before the primaries.
Right.
So I mean, you can see that I anticipated the outcome of the primaries.
Yes.
Why did I anticipate the primary outcome? Rivers State was a PDP state, as I said. The governor, Right Honorable Rotimi Amechi, was
Yes.
a PDP stalwart. He was one of our bright lights in,
Yes.
in the PDP.
Yes.
Due to disagreement, he defected to the APC. What happened to the PDP register? When it was a PDP state entirely, the governor was PDP and everybody's PDP, no other party had a chance to win an election in the state other than the PDP.
Yes.
And it's been like that since Dr. Odein was governor in 1999. Yeah, I mean, we gave, as you said, as you pointed out, 2 million votes to
Yes.
President Jonathan in 2011. In my ward, at the time I registered, my number in my ward was 001.
You remember that?
I remember that. Why? Because it's a very easy number to remember. And because I was minister when the revalidation of voters was done. So
Yes.
I was given the privilege, I was the most important person in my ward, so I was number one.
Yes.
Okay? What happened to that? A new register suddenly emerged without any revalidation or registration process, in which my name was not in the register at all. Somebody else was now number 001 in this new register. There was no publicity about any registration or revalidation process, that there's a new register being done or a new registration. Look, PDP members, those of you who are not going with the governor to
Yes.
APC, come back
Come
and
and
register
re-register.
so that we know who you are. Now, if that was not done, how do you go to have an election by PDP members, unknown PDP members, of delegates at a ward congress? So it clearly couldn't have happened. But that was the basis on which I was disqualified. After I submitted my form, I went for
Yes.
screening and they said I was not a member of the PDP. I produced my 2 PDP cards, my original one, which I'm very, very proud of, to show that I'm an old member of PDP,
Yes.
and the new one that was issued to me when the revalidation exercise occurred,
Yes.
and that's how I became 001 in the register. And I have a copy of that register, which I showed to the appeal screening panel.
The actual entry into the register. You have a copy.
I copied the register. I anticipated that this might happen, so I copied the register, and I had a copy of the register. So how I never resigned from PDP. I paid my dues right up to 2014. They took an extraordinary amount of money from me for the nomination.
Yeah.
For the form, and nobody said I wasn't a member of the party.
I mean, I would have thought that at the point you're taking an expression of interest form and a nomination form, somebody will say, okay, the first thing is you got to be a member to be taking this form.
Yeah, well, that's why you have the screening, because you may not be.
Yes.
You may not be. You may have, so the screening process is to verify that I do have school certificate.
Yes.
They want to check my birth certificate or declaration of age, that I am at least 35 years old.
Yes.
Right? And a few other things, that I've paid my taxes and so on.
So it wasn't as if you didn't find the cards, because when you were suspended, you were declared unqualified to contest.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, maybe along the way you've misplaced your original card.
Oh, no, I'm a very careful person, meticulous. So I had my original card. In fact, one of the screening members actually commented when I produced the original card, which I'm very proud of.
Yes.
This is an old member of our party, you know? Yet that same screening committee disqualified me for not being a member of the party. Curious. And I actually thought it was a joke when they said there was a petition from some kid in my local government who written a single petition from some kid in the local government who said I was not a member of the party because my name was not in the list of members.
Didn't they ask you where then you obtained these cards from? Because it must mean that...
In fact, it's actually, Angela, it's actually more interesting than that, because the petition quoted my card number. It said, but this card is not in the register. And this is the card that I presented to the screening committee. Anyway, that's spilt milk. I went to the appeal panel. They essentially laughed it off, because I couldn't have been anything other than a PDP member for me to have been Attorney General of the state and Minister of State for Petroleum and Foreign Minister.
Yes.
So, we were myself...
Have you ever been a member of any other political party.
I haven't, and I said
You've
so.
not flirted with any of them.
And I said so on oath. I mean, in the screening, the original screening committee, when I realized this was a serious challenge,
yes,
I said, well, since it's in writing, can I also put my response in writing? And they gave me that liberty, which I did. And I said all this, that I've never resigned, I've never associated with any other political party, I'm a loyal member of the party, I've paid my dues, here are the receipts, here are my cards, da-da-da-da-da.
Yes.
But they weren't convinced, obviously. So
and so you went to appeal, and
yes.
What happened there?
They heard me, and myself, and it wasn't just me, there were 12 of us whose names were not in this famous PDP list. And as I found out later, many of our supporters' names were not on the list. So how this list was made up, you know, I don't know, you know. And so we're saying, if I choose to offer myself, because that's all this is. I'm offering myself to the people of Rivers State to say, this is me, this is my background, this is my experience. I think I have something to offer you to try and make our state better for all of us. It's for the people of Rivers State to say, no, we don't want you, because you're a Lagos boy. You don't, you know.
For whatever reason.
Whatever reason.
Yeah.
But that process should be fair and transparent, right? You shouldn't take my name out of the register, you know, and take my supporters' names out of the register so that they can't vote in a ward congress. Whoever did that, and I don't know who did that.
Yes.
But, you know, that was done, and I'm saying we should do it properly. So my claim really is one, eligibility of the person who
has
eventually emerged as the flag bearer of the party is not eligible. And the conduct of the primaries can't overreach my claim. The claim has to be determined ultimately by the Supreme Court of Nigeria. That's the final court. I mean, I think it goes that far. Yeah. Right, until the Supreme Court says he's eligible, there's a challenge to his eligibility.
So even though he has emerged, so to speak,
I think he recognizes that. That's why he's joined the case. He applied to join the case. Okay. The day after the primaries, he applied to join the case. And so, you know, I mean, that's why I say I don't think this is there shouldn't be any animosity, because this is just a disagreement between two lawyers. Yes.
Since he's asked to join the case, has he communicated with you directly?
We've spoken. I saw a missed call from him, and I called him back. Yes. And we had a nice banter. You know, I mean, there's no animosity. I mean,
he's doing what he has to do. You're doing what you have to do.
Yeah, and you know, and we both agreed that, you know, the most important thing is that the PDP must win. You know, hey, whether it's me supporting him or him supporting me, you know, but let's resolve this this debate. It's not just me in this. There are altogether there are 24 of us who made it to this point, including Chief Nyesom Wike. Yes, and the others are. So it's not that if the case is successful, therefore I become the candidate. No, it's not that. No. It's that if the court agrees with me on both counts, then there should be a registration process. There should be new congresses and new delegates and new primaries. That's what should happen. Now, if because there's a time constraint under the INEC guidelines, then it's for the leadership of the party, very, very experienced people. These are veteran politicians. They were from Shagari's time. You know, they were in NRC, SDP. They were and now PDP. So these are, you know, very, very well groomed and established people. Yes. I'm sure they'll find a solution if there isn't enough time to do all the things that are done, to find an eligible candidate to fly the PDP flag.
Do you think that majority of the other groups in Rivers State will vote against an Ikwere person?
I'm not even going there. You know, I'm a lawyer, you know, and I think like a lawyer, unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, you know, and I'm not, this is not about ethnicity per se. There are so many incredibly talented Ikwere sons and daughters. I mean, like, it'd be invidious for me to name them, but I mean, there are so many. And if everyone knew that this turn was the turn of the Ikweres, for example, they'd never had the governorship before. I don't think Chief Nyesom Wike would be the only contestant in the primaries from Ikwere. You know, I can think of Sir Celestine Omehia for a start. He only did 5 months, so he's certainly eligible to qualify to run again. I mean, as Fayose did in Ekiti State. He'd done 1 term. He was, you know, he left and he ran another election. He can only do 1 more term, right, under the Constitution. So Celestine Omehia certainly can do another term as governor. The former deputy speaker of Rivers State, Sir Austin Okwara,
Yes.
who indeed, was on the verge of being governor. He stepped down the day before the primaries in 2007. He certainly is qualified. I can think of a lady who's former secretary to the secretary to Rivers State government, Dame Alaruchi Kukigam, very accomplished lady, lawyer, former attorney general. I don't know what party affiliation she has now, but I mean, certainly competent to be governor. There are so many of them, former members of the House of Assembly, of the Senate. People have accomplished a lot, and are definitely qualified. But why they're not running? Because I think, and that's why I said, I'm sure that even Chief Nyesom Wike himself knows that this is not really kosher. But, he wants to win, he wants PDP to win, and he thinks he's the best person to deliver PDP victory.
Yes.
And I'm saying, sorry, as a lawyer, that may well be. But we have laws and rules and regulations. And so the case is a bit more than just about whether I'm governor or not. As I told you earlier, that's not so important to me, because I think there are so many people who can do the job. And I mean, my hands are available to support and help in any way that they think I can, commensurate with my standing and my experience.
Yes.
It's more about following rules and following regulations, and that's one of the challenges that we have as a country. People are watching this. This is no longer, in one little dark corner where nobody sees what you're doing. The whole world is watching this process. And how we conduct ourselves affects how the world relates to us. So it's as much about that as it is about the governorship of Rivers State. Of course, my claim is about that. That's a focus of my thrust of what I'm doing.
Yes.
But I think there are implications far-reaching implications beyond the narrow compass of my claim.
Well, wish you all the best in your quest to be the governor of Rivers State. I wish I'll be back to interview you as the governor of Rivers State.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And that's it for this week. Don't forget to like 60 Minutes with Angela on Facebook. Alternatively, follow me on Twitter, Angela at 60 Minutes. Well, if you missed a part of this interview, you can watch it again on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/TEDTV60. youtube.com/TEDTV60. I'm Angela Ajumogobia. I thank you for the pleasure of your company.